Hello everybody, and today we are going to be checking out a scenario where civilization restarts. We are now on episode 19 of our series, and in the last episode, if you've not seen it, we saw increased colonization here in North and South America, a couple of new countries springing up over here in Africa, more exploration being incited over here in Oceania, and a couple of unionizations and independence movements. If you guys do enjoy today's scenario, then please consider liking and subscribing, and I'm not allowed to disclose too much information, but next episode is going to be episode 20, where we're going to see a lot of nations do some very bad things. Now that will be more specified later in this video. It's actually going to be the last event, so make sure to stick around and find out what it is. But on that note, let's get straight into today's scenario. Now first, I'm going to be going down to this dark red country. Now this country may not seem very important, and you'd be correct, it's not very important. It formed like 2 episodes ago, but it's doing surprisingly well as a civilization. It's one of the more successful ones, and that is mainly because of its location. You can see it's on this river network in the Niger areas, and that's why it is benefiting so much. And it's going to soon go across the Ivory Coast and start to colonize a lot of this rich ivory land. But eventually boats are going to be seen over here in this little dip in the coast, and a country is going to make a landing. The people that live here have never really seen boats. The people here are a bit more primitive than the people that are up here in Europe. Of course, people up here in Europe are like sophisticated, while these guys down here live without nation and according to the Europeans are, quote, savages. So they make a landing, and you might recognize this color, but to the people that don't recognize this color, I'm going to specify it in a little bit. But they come to Central Africa bringing peace, or at least promising it, and they're going to bring a lot of money that comes along with that promise. And if you don't know already, this is the Catalonian country that has just landed in Africa. This is the first presence of an outside European power inside of the African continent, so it would be pretty interesting to see how it plays out. But we're going to see something else happening as well, and that is going to be the sophistication of the African nations. Specifically South Africa, Mozambique, Victoria, and the Niger country. The reason South Africa is gaining a capital is because it's all the way down here at the bottom, and if you didn't know, there is not a Suez Canal, so if you want to get from Iberia over here to India, then you have to go all the way down, like around Africa. But eventually they're going to go around and stop in southern Africa. And that's like the long bit of the journey. So this is where they're getting a lot of payout. So that's why they have sophisticated themselves into creating a jurisdictional capital. But next we're going to be going over here to the Mozambique country. And there's going to be right over here, if I can click the river layer, it's going to be right here. This is mainly because they were one of the first major African nations that were kind of just born purely African, so they have come a far way to develop. Victoria, there's not much to say. They were kind of a part of the same separatist movement as the Mozambique country, so they are going to see similar technological advances. And like I said earlier, the Niger country is very rich, so they are going to put their capital right where their wealth is coming from, here on the Niger River. And now we see these nations gaining their own respective capitals. But turning on the rivers, we are going to see that the Spanish Catalonians are going to incentivize their colonization over here in the river bay areas. And they're going to find a very complex network inclusive of the Congo. And they're going to profit off this a lot. Eventually, this colony is going to become a massive payout, even bigger than the payout that Brazil sufficed them with. And Brazil is one of their oldest colonies, and the fact that this one is producing a lot more kind of shows the richness of this area and how maybe some countries can exploit it. But there aren't that many countries that are eligible for colonization, so how about we change that? A big war is going to occur over here in the British Isles. And this is going to be the purple team invading the orange team. Now, like I said in the last episode, the purple team is derived from the French government, and the orange team is a separatist movement derived from the Benelux country. But the orange team was a lot worse off. The Benelux did not treat this well, but this area is a lot better set up. So now the separatist movement is going to have separatist movements, and we're going to see one popping up over here, but we're also going to see one popping up here in the north, officially splitting the country in two. And the rest is taken by the purple team, kind of acting as a buffer state between the two radical societies. And now we can take a look at this peace treaty dividing up the orange team. Alright, and this is what we see our peace treaty looking like. We see the purple team gaining a lot of territory and two new states. Now, of course, this one up here was lime before, and now they have transformed into orange, and that is kind of just for the purpose of color continuity. But do keep in mind that the old orange team is dead, and this is not their, predecessor, but it is the same color, and that is just for continuity. But there's also this brand new golden state down here that was born from the south, and this was the Southern Rebellion. And now England is starting to gain a lot of power, and they're going to further demonstrate this in Ireland. The boats are going to pull up to the shores, and eventually they're going to be like, yo, we're invading you. And the Irish, who are brand new to the game, have only formed a couple episodes ago, are going to be absolutely demolished by the purple team's skill. It is just unmatched. The purple team has been involved in too many ranked matches, and they are too experienced, while the Irish have been in no ranked matches. Eventually, the Scottish, who are a little bit more powerful in ranking than the Irish, are going to land in their territory as well. Once again, like I said, the Irish have just not been playing the game for long enough. Eventually, their home base is going to be captured, and they're going to have to relocate their divisions, but the boys are starting to lose their morale. The Scottish move further in the north, and eventually their squad is forced to surrender over to the English, and their server is going to be taken down and replaced with the purple team server. And we can take a look at what that's going to look like. Alright, and in this ranked match ending, we see the Irish are fully eradicated, and they are replaced by the server of the purple team, and a little bit of the server went over to the Scottish, and I am never going to talk like that again. I am very sorry. But on a real note, we do see the purple team emerging as a very strong British Isles country. But now going over here to the Americas, the Chinese are going to do something that is going to basically just give them a godsend. Some explorers are going to explore this territory, trying to expand the frontier of North American exploration, and eventually one of them is going to rush back to the administrative capital of the Chinese colony, and they're going to be like, yo, you got to set up a colony right there. Now the Chinese, understandably, are confused, but they comply, and they're just going to trust this random guy. And eventually the Chinese are going to establish some settlements up here. You know, they're going to move some people up here, and they're going to officially claim it for the Chinese. But eventually the colonizers, led by the explorers and kind of being aimed in a direction, is going to expand the colony inwards, and eventually they're going to find copious amounts of gold. A lot of people inside of the administrative areas of the Chinese colony were like, yeah, these guys are crazy. Let's not say what they're going to do because just it's bad public image. But eventually those administrative figures were left to put to the side, and now the Chinese colony is expanding a lot because of this gold rush. And of course, now a lot of other colonizers are going to be wary of this sort of thing, but some of them are going to be pushed to their limit, as now the American colony, administrated by the French, are going to be pushed out very far into Quebec. Now, like I said earlier, I said that they were going to be pushed to their limit, but the French don't really have a limit in this sense. Of course, with them being a colonizing power, they're going to explore a lot of the North American territory, which is going to lead to their justification of a potential gold rush, so they can colonize a lot of territory, and eventually they encompass the entirety of the Great Lakes, which is a very good economic output. Eventually, we're going to see Hokkaido is going to explore along the coast of Alaska, and they're going to find a lot of gold as well. Even though a lot of the gold is like centralized over here, kind of, at least as far as I know. And the Hokkaido colony is going to be able to expand a lot, as this gold rush is their justification, and they're going to take a lot of territory around the natural minerals, which allows their colony to expand greatly. They explore all the way up here, which is the furthest north, I believe, that humanity has ever gone, and Alaska is fully discovered, and eventually they're going to move further out into Canada and the central areas of the United States. Now, of course, Canada and the United States being figurative, they do not exist in this world. At least they don't yet. But the Hokkaido Alaskan colony is going to expand and thrive, and it is going to encompass a lot of Alaska, surprisingly enough. And the Chinese are going to move inward as well, as they aim to encompass a lot of the western areas of North America, because who knows, maybe another one of these like gold rushes could happen again. But not straying too far away, though, we are going to see the Danish. They are going to land over here in this island, which I'm not sure if it has any natural minerals or any reason to colonize, but it is a little bit of a docking port to get from Greenland to Quebec, and that would be very beneficial. Because right now, their boats have to go all the way here through the North Sea, which is very dangerous, and dock here in Greenland, and then they have to go all the way down here to Quebec. And those are two pretty long journeys, so maybe we could make one of them easier by just going like that and then that. So they're going to establish a series of tiny colonies that are going to allow for the trade between Greenland and Quebec to go up a lot, and it's going to become a lot cheaper and inexpensive. This causes the Danish economy to do a lot better, and you can kind of see why countries are incentivized to colonize. Eventually, these three islands over here are going to be discovered, and a landing is made on like the main areas of North America, not really being a separate island, but actually being the mainland of Canada. And of course, this is also a very good place to just kind of set up your colonial empire, because it's not really about what you're getting right now, it's more about the frontier of the area that you could get. So they're going to take these three islands and autonomously administrate this area, which they are going to do by having a very small section here. And basically, they're telling anybody that wants to colonize here, not that like anybody can, but they are telling them to just go and screw off. But I swear, this is the final event we're going to see in North America, but it's just going to be the French increasing their colonization here on the Hudson Bay. Now, let me just specify something. Let me just give you an example of what I'm about to say. This is the Portuguese colony, correct? They are over here in Iberia, but they have their administrative claims over here in the Americas. But this is not like their colony. This is the claimed territory they claim to have. Their actual colony probably looks a little something like this, with different segments being a lot more important than the others, and everything outside the red is more of an administrative thing. So this is most likely what it looks like. This is the same with the French. Most of their colony aspects are over here on the eastern coast, and maybe reach out here to Michigan. But overall, a lot of these northern areas are not really consistent of the actual, French claimed areas. And the difference between claimed and a colony is that you have assets out there. So say if the Portuguese really just focused all of their colonization assets to move further out here, then that would be considered their colony. This would be an area of the colony. But yep, sorry about the yap sesh, and we are now going to be going back over here to Africa, where we're going to see more countries start to fill in territory. The Mozambique and Victorian countries are starting to realize that the Europeans in Africa are going to be a very terrifying prospect, and that is just going to incentivize them to have the justification to take a lot of territory. So it's a little bit counterintuitive what they are doing, but according to them, it's doing well. Eventually, better established connections are going to be made between Mozambique and South Africa, and at this point, these are fully functioning societies. Ones that are a lot more advanced than the ones that were before colonization in real life. Of course, you had the Ghana Empire before the French and the English came here. Of course, that is real life, that is not Wixa. But we're going to see something a little bit more comparable, but something a little bit more unrealistic in the aspect that these areas are a lot more developed, but the Europeans are not going to stray from their forefathering activities. Colonization is going to thrive in Central Africa. And that is being demonstrated by the Catalonians, like I said, and they are going to establish a meeting in their capital. Basically, this meeting is going to consist of some very precarious and strong nations. The countries involved will be a circle. This is, of course, going to be Catalonia, Portugal, France, the Benelux, the Romans, and finally the English/Irish, but I'm just going to be referring to them as the English. All of these countries are going to come together and start to draw up claims dividing up this big, empty and totally uncolonized piece of land. Oh, also we see Denmark as well. Denmark is a little bit interesting because in this history, kind of uncomparable to the real life history, they were a big colonizing power in this history. Of course, in Addis Pro's series, Ireland was a big colonizing power, and he put aside a lot of realism for that, but we're just going to be seeing our situation being comparable, but just replacing Ireland with Denmark. And these guys are going to start to draw up claims for Africa. But of course, there are going to be some things that Rome is going to have to do so they can create themselves to be a little bit more solidaro. First of all, the Greeks are going to go into an economical crisis. Now, that's straying a little bit away from Italy, but all you need to know is that Greece needs some quick money, and they're going to achieve that by Rome being able to buy this area that they won in the coalition. So Rome is going to be able to purchase this strip of land. They're also going to be able to buy off the rest of Corsica from the Catalonians. This just helps to make their country be a lot more solidaro, and Rome is now a lot more evident of a power. Now, of course, there are countries that want to go and colonize but are not able to. The Norwegians are definitely secluded over here to the north. They are kind of just trapped over here because you have two very strong powers that are already incentivized to colonize, of which being the English and the Danish, so it's kind of blocking them off a little bit, and Norway is very sad. The Baltic country has declared that they want to colonize, but of course they're not able to do that. Russia as well. But this meeting is going to be known as the Conference of Barcelona, or the Barcelona Conference. This is going to be a conference, of course, led by the Catalonians, as they are the forefather perpetrator to this conference, of this conglomeration of nations, like I said at the beginning of the video. And yeah, that was just a little bit of secrecy that's been traded around between, of course, all of these nations. Denmark as well, but they're a little bit less involved. And these countries are starting to industrialize themselves, making themselves a lot more fit for the position of colonizer. But now we're going to go over here to the trade route map. It has been a long time since we've updated this, but I think it needs one final update because trade routes are starting to go out of style. First of all, the trade route is going to expand down the coast of Arabia, going into the Orange Team. This is something that should have happened a while ago. But a track is going to split off and it's going to go to the South Arabian Union. One is going to go down the western coast of Arabia and reach the western Arabian capital. They're even able to make one across the Strait of Bosporus, which goes well and links up in the brown team capital. One is going to link up with the Russian capital over here in the pink team, and another one is going to be made through this union because they wanted their ally to be controlling instead of their enemy. And one transcontinental one is going to be made across Eastern Europe. That's all of the trade route stuff we see over here in the west, but what about in the east? Well, one is going to be made down the coast of Burma and it is going to link up over here in the capital of Malaysia. One is going to diverge over here in Afghanistan and it's going to go through the gray team, kind of making a pivotal turn. And it links up in the capital of the gray team and eventually with the Silk Road. And one is made to the south of the blue team, not really for any purpose of linking up with an administrative capital, but sort of just kind of like, economic prosperity. It's better. And we see another trade route being established for a quicker connection. If you don't really want to go south, you can just go straight across. And for the final trade route, we are going to see one going from Egypt to the colony of Western Arabia through Djibouti and ending up here in Somalia. And these are the trade routes at their peak. They're not going to expand anymore because they have no reason to, and that is because more localized internal networks are going to be incentivized over trade routes. And yes, I do need to update the religion map. There is definitely a lot more to it than this, but I will do that, and it will be done by episode 20. But speaking of episode 20, that will be releasing in a couple of days, probably in a premiere, and with that, this episode is going to conclude. I hope you guys did enjoy today's scenario, and if you did, please go down and like and comment, and join the Discord, and turn on the notification bell. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and your support means everything. Episode 20 is going to be the division of Africa in the conference of Barcelona. But episode 25, you guys are not ready for it. I have everything planned out, and I'm actually about to record it. So if you see me with the same shirt recording episode 25, then no, I was just too excited. But episode 20 will be releasing in a couple of days, and episode 25 is going to be a major implication on the series, so make sure to stick around with me for the next couple of weeks. And yeah, on that note, I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye-bye!